Superman, an iconic hero who has been adapted across decades and mediums. And the Man of Steel has had his fair share of cartoons dedicated to him, or at least featured them in some way or another. Some have found their way into the halls, the annals of Superman history. The Fleischer Superman, Super Friends, he wasn't the star of that one, but he certainly was in it. And of course you have the 90s TAS, the animated series. But there is one adaptation that seems to have slipped through the cracks, fallen for many down a memory hole. And that is the Superman series from 1988. Yes, there was a series in 1988, the Ruby Spears Superman.
Kryptonite! It's weakening me!
Did you miss this Saturday morning cartoon, or did you not know that it ever even happened? If you did, you wouldn't be alone. So let's take a look at this late 80s series. Strap in and get some cereal. And if you're not in the mood for something really sugary, I have something else to offer you. This video is brought to you by Magic Spoon. Magic Spoon is a brand that's looking to marry the fun of chomping on cereal while you're watching cartoons, eating breakfast, having breakfast for dinner, but with a healthier and still tasty option. And you still get to have all the fun. There's things like Mad Libs on the box. This one has a word search. Magic Spoon cereals have 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, and only 4 to 5 net grams of carbs in each serving. Only 140 calories per serving. They're also keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, and low-carb. I'm particularly into them because being pregnant, I've been trying to cut down and have had to cut down on sugars and the like, but I'm still looking for things that fuel my lifestyle and taste. And these are perfect for the occasional breakfast cereal. They're cereal reinvented, and there are 4 flavors, and they're classics. There's cocoa, frosted, fruity, and peanut butter. I liked peanut butter and cocoa the most, so I combined them for the best of both worlds. Click the link below to grab a variety pack and try it today. And be sure to use the promo code CASUALLY5 at checkout to get $5 off any order. Or go to magicspoon.com/casually5. And Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. So click the link below and use the code CASUALLY5 for $5 off, or go to magicspoon.com/casually5 to save $5 today. I'm still all about cereal, but it just has to be less sweet. But I'm still about Superman in all forms. The Ruby Spears Superman was the 3rd animated Superman to hit the screen, one that was fully focused on him as the main character. And it ended up having quite the comic book pedigree attached to it behind the scenes. The head story editor was Marv Wolfman, who had done extensive work on revitalizing the Teen Titans, as well as working on Crisis on Infinite Earths, the event that restructured the DC Universe, and ultimately led to an updated take on Superman, which he had also worked on. And that's just to name a few things. He was responsible for the show Bible. Martin Pascoe, another well-known Superman writer, was also on the writing staff. Several of the other writers would go on to work on Batman the Animated Series. Larry DiTilio, another writer, would later go on to co-create Beast Wars. The character design was handled by DC artist Gil Kane, a well-known and lauded artist in the comic book space. The series was looking to create an authentic look at Superman, and much thought was put into that, particularly by one of the Ruby Spears co-founders, Joe Ruby. The Ruby Spears production company was founded in 1977 by Scooby-Doo Where Are You creators Joe Ruby and Ken Spears. They had been involved in Hanna-Barbera Productions, but had found that they weren't advancing in that company, and so had left. In 1977, they were network executives at ABC. They were overseeing Saturday morning cartoon production. They were then approached to create their production company to compete with Hanna-Barbera's at the time juggernaut of a Saturday morning cartoon lineup, which was producing Saturday morning content for all 3 major networks at the time. So ABC, CBS, and NBC. The Saturday morning cartoon wars, they were real, and I miss them. The company would start off as a subsidiary of Filmways, which would later become Orion Pictures. But in 1981, it was sold to Taft Broadcasting. Because of that, it would become a sister company to Hanna-Barbera, which is where it stood in 1988. Now, this Superman series would be animated by Toei Animation, as well as Daiwan Animation, so in Japan and Korea respectively. The style of the series was not only informed by Kane's character designs, as well as some of the new designs from the comic books, but it was also being influenced by the early era Fleischer cartoons. The movements would be nowhere near as fluid as that series. Wolfman recalls being contacted for the project thusly. I have so many quotes, I'm very excited. Joe called me up out of the blue and asked me if I would like to work on the project. He did not know my connection to Superman. He had only heard that I was good for animation, that I knew the character. I don't think he was fully aware of all my comic work. Wolfman had done Superman parodies for the Garbage Pail Kids, which, if it's the case that he wasn't aware of his comic book work, it's kind of an interesting twist on the situation, because he was getting someone who was heavily involved and invested in the way that DC was reshaping itself at the time, and someone who was really excited about the changes that were happening therein post-Crisis, and as a result would seek to incorporate them into the direction of the show, somewhat. As for the type of Superman they were looking to portray, Ruby had this to say: "We went through a lot of different directions in development as to what kind of Superman we wanted. We had several different models. The crying, feeling Superman, the lecturing, do-gooder, save-the-day Superman. Then there was the hip Superman, and even the long-haired Superman, and of course there was the old straight-as-an-arrow Superman. Ultimately we settled on the Christopher Reeve model. He had personality and a sense of humor, and yet he was still Superman. We figured that it worked for the film, so it would work well for us. I want to know more about hip Superman. What would 80s hip Superman look like? I need to know. What Ruby calls the Reeves model is also the first on-screen representation of the post-crisis Superman, and though it does borrow heavily from the Reeves films and that presentation in terms of other things as well, it is incorporating some of those new post-crisis elements. It's kind of rolling them together. Superman had been relaunched in 1986, and there were some long-standing elements that were changed, such as Superman no longer having been Superboy. That was huge. Another change, Businessman Lex. The move from super scientist and super criminal Lex to evil businessman tycoon. It was still ongoing, and years later a kind of medium would be struck. He can do both. Get yourself a man who can do both. Wolfman describes the Ruby Spears Superman as follows. Our Superman is the Superman character we've all known and loved. Our Superman cast is a combination of several different versions. The attitudes taken by Superman himself are more of the heroic attitudes rather than somebody who's bothered by people asking him to help them. So definitely not the Silver Age Superman. None of that. The series itself would ultimately consist of 13 episodes, but of 26 segments. Each episode would have a main section and end with a 4-minute short.
How did he get all the way out here?
What do we do now?
This segment would be from the Superman Family album, and these would detail Clark's childhood growing up in Smallville. They were told roughly in chronological order and started with him being adopted. Then you get things like his first day, his first babysitter, his first date, those kind of things. And of course the classic Clark can't play football story. Just gotta put that everywhere. This segment was the brainchild of Judy Price, who was the head of CBS Kids division at the time. This was meant to add some kid appeal to the show. As Wolfman stated, he wanted to skew the show a bit older, not super old, but older than the youngest demographic. He stated, I frankly cannot imagine anyone under 6 even understanding one of our shows because some of them are fairly complicated. We're writing it, certainly the Luthor episodes with some wit involved. Take that, witless 4-year-olds. This series would also bring in George Perez's version of Wonder Woman, who had also been relaunched post-crisis and been taken in a different direction, much more heavy on the Greek mythology. And this would be that version's on-screen appearance, and also the first animated on-screen appearance of Wonder Woman following a pretty big gap. This was in episode 8, Superman and Wonder Woman versus the Sorceress of Time. Wolfman was very excited about what was going on with Wonder Woman at that point, and he stated, I think what George is doing with Wonder Woman is remarkable. Despite this, the episode is loosely based on a pre-crisis story from Wonder Woman 314 from 1984, which was a Circe story. In the episode, the Sorceress is called Serene.
Let's see how you like these, Miss Lane.
The show would also feature the Luthor in transition. He's a businessman, yes, but his characterization is also heavily influenced by the Hackman portrayals. They've even added a comic relief girlfriend for him, like he had in the movies. Her first scene involves her rushing to make sure he gets his milkshake.
Sorry, Lexi. We were out of chocolate chip. Here.
It's such a little thing. For some reason, it's stuck with me. I don't understand why. Lex Luthor loving milkshakes is now just living rent-free in my brain. Jimmy and Lois are fairly unaltered, as they tend to be. The title role of Superman was performed by Bo Weaver, who would later end up being the voice of Mr. Fantastic on the 1994 Fantastic Four series. And it must be said for this role, he leads heavily into a very standard Boy Scouty, ultra-heroic sounding archetype for Superman.
It's part of a bomb.
Boy, am I glad you're back.
I never left.
Which results in the cadence at points falling flat, particularly when he's up against Michael Bella's Lex, who came to eat and left no crumbs.
All right, my ring. Lovely jewel, isn't it? I believe it's called kryptonite.
Scenery? What scenery? Where? There's definitely more range as Clark, and as it goes on, the Superman voice acting starts to get more nuanced, so perhaps if the show had gone longer, it would have evened out. Judy McSwain not only provided Lois Lane's voice, but also voice direction. The music in this series was another area where they sought to kind of honor the Superman legacy. The theme featured was a reorchestrated version of the 1978 film theme by John Williams. And speaking of honoring Superman tradition, the opening narration. It was the same sequence from The Adventures of Superman from the 1950s, but this time was narrated by Bill Woodson. He had been the narrator on the Super Friends since the revival in 1977. In short, a lot of time and thought went into the Superman series, with Spears stating, it was like an honor to do something that classy and classic as Superman. He's the #1 guy. We want to do it justice. And Ruby followed that up with, your heroes stick with you. So we wanted to make the best Superman show we could, to really set it apart. I think everyone that worked on it felt that way. He's Superman. With all of that love and attention to detail, and all the pedigree coming from different areas, from animation to comics, just everywhere. How was this series? It was okay. It's definitely a competently produced show, but it feels very formulaic and beholden to not only the tropes of the time, but those from previous shows prior. And some of those at that point were decades old.
Stay here. There's trouble. Metropolis is in danger.
In its quest to honor Superman as he was, it didn't really break any new ground despite being the first to portray some of the at the time newly established concepts. Because despite that, it was leaning heavily on portrayal that had begun in the 1970s. When you watch the episodes, some of them would have felt right at home as a segment of the Super Friends. Which is not to say that the series cannot be entertaining or fun. It most certainly can be, and it does indeed feel like a Superman show. But at the same time, it's not hard to see how it slipped into the background.
Come on, Miss Lane! We'll get help!
Definitely looks like a job for Superman.
It also seems to have gotten lost in the shuffle post its cancellation, for it only lasted one season. Seemed to miss the syndication bubble, and seemingly got shelved or there wasn't any interest in it after Ruby's series was spun off into RS Holdings, and most of their backlog was purchased by Turner Broadcasting, later Time Warner, nowadays Warner Discovery, time of recording. As for the stories, many of them are very Silver Age, but they also have this kind of classic Hanna-Barbera vibe to them in terms of how they're presented, the camera framing, the shots, the like. You'll have episodes like Lois and Jimmy being turned to robots by Cybron, Lex buying the Great Wall of China.
I still don't get it, Lexi. How did you manage to buy the Great Wall? Why, that's like buying the Grand Canyon.
Superman having to fight a Captain Wild Shark with 2 Ks in the Bermuda Triangle.
So beautiful, so deadly, so intelligent.
I love this episode so much. Some of them do feel a bit like fever dreams. Now this series lined up with Superman's 50th anniversary, as did the Superboy series, which also has largely been memory hold. But this animated series was not produced to coincide with it, nor is it treated as such at the time or after. The series was collected and released on DVD in 2009, and time of recording, well, there you go. You can pick up digital episodes online, and for a while it was on Tubi. Maybe it'll come back there. So if you really want to see it, which I did, there are ways. Now information on this series can be a bit sparse because it's not exactly one that people flock to. So it's not subject to the same scrutiny or behind the scenes interest as some other shows. So I'm sure that there are many more anecdotes floating around there that just have yet to be collected. But one topic that remains fairly vague is the why it was canceled. Some cite poor scheduling, but from the air dates I saw, it aired faithfully every Saturday weekly for the duration of its run. This was for the fall season of 1988 from September to December, although it is possible it may have been up against a far more popular show. Another reason put forth was that the series was expensive, costing heavy licensing fees, which is a strong contender. But so is the idea that the show just didn't perform well, or as well as hoped, for the fees that were being paid. Whatever the reason for its short 13-episode existence, 26 segments, the series deserves more play. It is a very interesting time capsule showcasing animation of the period that was in a bit of a flux, looking to the past right before people would really break out and start doing some different things only a few years later. The contrast between a series like Reeve Superman and Batman TAS are stark, yet intriguing to observe. It would be interesting to have the series more readily accessible and see if that did anything for it, if it maybe gained a cult following, or if there was just maybe some more appreciation for it, as there is appreciation for the Fleischer series, for example. But at the same time, the demand may not be there. It's probably not there. Demand with me. Reeve Superman is a look at what happens when a series of talented creators come together to place a character who at the time was in flux into a more recognizable position that in some ways accidentally renders him stagnant, and in other ways feels like he's gone backwards. Again, some of these stories and events feel right at home in the Silver Age, which was not what they were going for.
Never been so humiliated. Fasten your seatbelt. When I get the power of the globe, no more planes.
Reeve Superman is certainly a moment in Superman's history, but not an overly large one, or one that appears to have left much of an impact. But it existed, and the people deserve to know. Even if it's just you can say, hey, did you know there was a Superman series from 1988? Were you familiar with the 1988 Superman series? Were you a fan? Do you remember it fondly? Do you wish that was more well known? If this is your first time hearing about it, will you be seeking it out? What do you think is the best animated portrayal of Superman? I want to hear all your thoughts. Share them down below. Thank you so much to Magic Spoon for sponsoring this video, and thank you so much for taking some time of your day spent discussing, well, comic book adaptations with me. I always appreciate it. Please do all the YouTube things, like, share, comment, subscribe, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.